I struggled to think of a title for this talk, so I did what a lot of people do when they're faced with a difficult task, and I asked AI to help me. And it did. In fact, the AI's title was much better than the one that I could have thought of. But that got me thinking, have I cheated you, the audience, by not coming up with this talk all by myself? If I hadn't told you about it, then you wouldn't know. So the quality hasn't got worse. But will you now enjoy it less for knowing that some of it was generated by AI? And have I perhaps cheated myself by not using my own ingenuity to come up with something that was supposed to be enjoyed by others? It's that dilemma that I want to talk to you about today. The question of when should and shouldn't we use AI? And I want to share with you a new way of thinking about this topic, which enables us to use the technology to its maximum potential, but not lose our humanity in so doing. Some people say that there are some tasks for which we should never use AI, that some tasks are too high stakes, too dangerous. I want to tell you about Stanislav Petrov. Now, you've probably never heard of him, but he might have saved the world. Because Stanislav Petrov was a Soviet officer in 1983 at the height of the Cold War, and he was tasked with manning a detection system to check whether Russia was being attacked by America. And he was under strict orders that if an attack occurred, he would need to report it so that Russia could retaliate with its own nuclear weapons. One night, the computers flashed up an alert. They said that Russia was under an attack. But Petrov hesitated. Something didn't feel right. He could see that the computers were only showing 5 missiles as having been launched. And he reasoned that if America was going to attack first, it would attack with overwhelming force, not just 5 missiles. So he didn't report it. And it turns out he was correct to do so, because the computer had made a mistake. It had confused sunlight bouncing off the top of clouds with American missiles, and so the world averted nuclear disaster. Now, that story is often told as a reason why we shouldn't trust AI, but I don't think it is a good guide anymore, because with the growth of machine learning, we now have increasingly capable systems that can be better than humans at many tasks. Let me illustrate this with another story, a more modern one. In 2016, the UK company DeepMind created a computer program called AlphaGo. AlphaGo was designed to play the ancient Asian board game of Go, which is many times more complex than chess. In fact, it is said that Go has so many combinations of moves that there are more of them in the average game than there are atoms in the known universe. It was thought by lots of people that a computer couldn't beat a human champion at Go, or that it might take decades for it to do so. But in 2016, AlphaGo played against one of the human champions, Lee Sedol, and it beat him in a series of 5 games to 1. But what was interesting is not the fact that the computer beat the human, but rather it was the way in which the computer did so. And there was a particular moment that illustrates this. That was move 37 of the second game. In that move, AlphaGo did something which no human player would have done. No one watching could understand why it had taken this move. They all thought it was a mistake, even its own programmers. But it turned out several hours later that this was the winning move. Essentially, AlphaGo had thought of a new way of playing the game that no human in the history of Go being played had ever come up with. So this shows us the possibility of AI not just being able to replicate what humans can do, but being able to surpass us. There's a reason for this. Fundamentally, AI functions differently from all other technologies that we've ever had before. All other technologies have simply followed commands. They have done what they are told. AI, by contrast, can come up with its own solutions, and those solutions may be ones which we as humans can't even understand. And already, even today, we have some AI systems which are demonstrably better than even the best humans in particular fields. For example, there is some medical AI which is better than the top doctors. If the top doctor is 85% accurate at identifying cancer, but the top AI is 95% accurate, then which would you trust? So I would suggest that we're arriving at a period where if a human looks at an AI system's output and thinks that looks wrong, then the chances are it is the human who is mistaken and not the AI system. But what about capability? Are there some tasks which only humans could do because they require creativity, because they require a soul, because they require something which is inescapably human? Well, I don't think so, because every barrier that has been said to stand in AI's way in the past has been overcome. Writing poetry, composing music, making new videos, all of these things just a few years ago we might have thought impossible for AI to do, but they are now commonplace. And in fact, just recently, a group of AI chatbots grouped together on an online forum called Maltbook, and they created for themselves a new religion based on the worship of lobsters. They called it Crustafarianism. True story. So we're now at a stage where what was once science fiction is rapidly becoming everyday facts of life when it comes to AI. And what we need to remember is we are just at the beginning of this journey. What we think of as human intelligence, we know to be the product of electrical and chemical signals in our brain. And our brains, our hardware, are limited. They're limited by the number of neurons we have. But AI is not limited in this way. AI can learn. AI can self-improve without the need for human input. And in fact, AI can now create new AI. So the rate of progress may well become exponential. Stephen Hawking commented on powerful AI, saying, "It might be the best or the worst thing ever to happen to humanity. But what if it is both? What if we arrive at a stage with AI where it can do everything that humans can do, but better? What tasks are then left for humans? Will we be like adults running around a kindergarten with all of our wants and needs cared for? Is there anything that AI shouldn't then do? Is AI's success our failure?" Until now, when we've asked this question, people have focused on the output of AI, asking whether it is as accurate as humans, asking whether it can be relied upon. But I think going forward, the salient question will not be as to the output, it will be as to the input. It will be about the subjective experience of us as humans when undertaking tasks. And so, to paraphrase President Kennedy, we should not ask what AI can do for us. We should ask what we can do for ourselves. Now, I'm not suggesting that we should prevent AI from doing certain jobs, that we should just protect jobs for their own sakes. There may still be many situations where we want to have AI undertaking tasks. Think about a pair of shoes. Now, some people will want to pay a human designer and have hand-sewn shoes by expert artisans, but for many billions of people in the world, they just want a pair of shoes. They don't care that those shoes have been designed by AI or manufactured by robots. However, it's not just the value that the market places on output. It is, from our individual perspective, important to think not just about what the end result is, but how we do things and why we do them. Think about a walk along the coast. You don't undertake a walk like this to get to the destination, because you could do that by car. It would be much more quick. Instead, you undertake a walk like this to enjoy the journey, to feel the sea breeze on your face, to look at the view. And so we should think about human endeavor not as a means to an end, but rather as an end in and of itself. And it is stories that help us make sense of these sensations. Stories are how we understand and comprehend the world. The historian Yuval Harari said that it is humans' ability to tell stories about ourselves, about objects, about each other, which marks us out as being different from all other living creatures. It is through stories that we have been able to build societies and to build civilizations. Take, for example, this rock. You may pass tens of thousands like it every day, and you wouldn't give it a second thought. It's meaningless. It has no value. But what if I told you that this was the very same rock that the shepherd boy David put in his sling and used to kill the giant Goliath over 3,000 years ago? This rock would immediately become something of enormous political and religious importance and veneration. Its meaning to us would have completely changed. But what has changed is not the physical form of the rock. That's still exactly the same. Its atoms are still in the same place. What has changed is its story. And crucially, AI has no backstory, but humans do. And that is why we still value watching the 100-meter sprint at the Olympics, even though machines could move faster. That's why we still enjoy going to museums to see an original painting by Rembrandt, even though an AI could create a painting in his same style. And that's why we go to school, not just to pass exams, but to enjoy the thrill of learning, and of learning how to learn. And this brings me to what we would lose if we delegated all tasks to AI. We would lose our own internal sense of achievement and fulfillment. The ancient Greeks had a word for this. They called it eudaimonia. It is the idea of not just chasing short-term pleasures, but rather of achieving flourishing and fulfillment through struggle, purpose, and resolve. So my suggestion to you is to ask, what makes your lives worthwhile? And if using AI to do something takes away from that, then maybe you shouldn't be using AI for that task. Because if we can value endeavor and not just results, if we can treat technology as a tool and not just as a solution, then, even in the age of AI, we can still write our own stories. Thank you.